What happens to country-specific TLDs in a war involving that country? I'm trying to find out what could happen, and what is likely to happen. I'm based in the UK and own UK domains as well as foreign domains such as Russian and USA TLDs, e.g., domain.co.uk, domain.ru, domain.us. I don't fully understand how DNS works, but what I'm trying to find out is if I own foreign TLDs and they're hosted on a server that is in my own country, can access to the URL be stopped or restricted by the TLD host country, and then if this is possible, is there any likelihood that this would happen in the event of their involvement in a war or major political breakdown between the countries? Is it physically possible that a country could restrict or ban access to their specific TLDs from some or all other countries? E.g., USA and Russia at war, is it physically possible to stop Russia from accessing their US TLDs? Is it likely that the TLDs would be restricted or banned in any way? Would it achieve any advantage to any country to do this? E.g., UK and USA at war, would it have any advantage for USA to ban UK from accessing their UK TLDs? Would any country restrict their own country from accessing other countries' TLDs? E.g., UK at war with Russia, would UK have any reason to ban access to Russian websites?
I'm trying to find out is if I own foreign TLDs and they're hosted on a server that is in my own country, can access to the URL be stopped or restricted by the TLD host country? The short answer is yes, but please do not think only about URLs, that is the web, but any kind of services, like email, VoIP, etc. Here is it why. The IANA DNS root delegates each TLD to some registries. GTLDS are delegated by registries under contract with ICANN, and CCTLDS registries are delegated to governments of relevant countries, that each decide technically how the CCTLD is managed. There is a lot of models. Sometimes it is still run by the government itself, sometimes it is outsourced to a non-profit organization, and sometimes it is just put under tender for the best offer, including companies. These registries manage name servers in which then each registered domains under the TLD is delegated, through NS records. Said differently, without any cache, each access to a domain name in a TLD, for its resolution, at some point comes to the name server of the TLD. Hence, theoretically they could reply anything and forward your domain to anything else. This is constrained because the DNS has a cache, so the TLD name server will not be queried at each resolution, only for some time to time. This process is easily seen by using DNS plus trace, such as You can see each step recursively. At left the label, root, then the TLD, then the domain, then the final host name, and at right in the NS records the authoritative name servers at each step, first the IANA ones for the root, then the ones for the TLD, then the one for the domain name. At each step a name server can lie and provide a false response, like any active elements in the path could change either the query or response. SEC provides some protections against this, but first, not all domains are protected within SEC, very few of them in fact, and then that could not solve a rogue TLD. This is the technical part. Your other questions are more a political problem. But note that for these exact same reasons some countries decided, or at least announced, that they want to operate their own DNS route. The rationale is that the current route is under a supervision, which is a complicated point that could be argued endlessly, so I will not develop that specific point here and now, and some countries fear that the US could censor a TLD that way, especially some countries that are considered as enemies by the US government. However, many actors believe that if this should ever happen one day, it will be metaphorically on the same level as a nuclear attack and would fragment internet in a way that may never be stitched back together. Note for example this case, some plaintiffs sued to get indemnities for casualties after terrorist attack and demanded, but this was refused, for that to get control of CCTLDS that they considered being the source of terrorism. See this article for some part of this story, killing. Here to compensate terrorist victims, it goes to the rescue. The other important point to also understand first is that as soon as you buy a domain name in any TLD you are bound, even if you do not read it when you should, by the regulations of that TLD, which dictate the eligibility requirements and any other constraints regarding registering and keeping a domain name. For CCTLDS this specifically include abiding by the laws of the country. And since some CCTLDS are marketed as nice TLD for domain names games, some people do not realize this. For example, the trend at one point was on .ly, and as funny as you want to look at it to do nice domain name, this is still the CCTLD of the country Libya, and hence you need to follow its laws and the Sharia. Some companies at looser risk to lose their domain name for these exact same reasons. See for example, Trouble and Clever Domain Land, Bitly and others risk losing their Swift.ly or Libyan domain shutdown no threat, insists Bitly. Since we are on .ly, and you spoke about wars, these articles could give you some hindsight of what wars can do to domain names, TLDS, or just struggles around controls. Dr. Hosni Tayyib in the case of the disappearing internet, why Libya went AWOL, 2004. Libya's internet goes dark as upheaval spreads, net communication severed, March 2011. Gaddafi ousted from Libya's Huas, November 2011. But do remark too that drastic changes can happen to CCTLDS, even without wars. This is a infamous example, the story of stolen Slovak national top-level domain. SK. Let us go back to your specific questions, but do note that they involve part of subjective answers. Is it physically possible that a country could restrict or ban access to their specific TLDs from some or all other countries? E.g., USA and Russia at war, is it physically possible to stop Russia from accessing their US TLDs? Yes, you technically could imagine that the .us name servers deny replying to requests coming from a specific geographical places in the world. However, this would be far from 100% for many reasons. IP geolocation is not in hard science with 100% reliability. DNS have caches. It is easy to use a VPN. Anyone, including people from the affected countries, could use an open resolver, such as Google Public DNS or Cloudflare 1 or Quad 9.1. In fact, this was used in the past to counter state censorship. See for example, Google DNS Freedom Fight, 8.8.8.8, etc. Is it likely that the TLDs would be restricted or banned in any way? Would it achieve any advantage to any country to do this? E.g., UK and USA at war, would it have any advantage for USA to ban UK from accessing their UK TLDs? Like written above, technically the IANA route lists the TLD active today. Technically this could change, and does change, but under specific processes, like the ICANN new GTLDS round in 2012. As for changes in CCTLDS, since countries can decide to change various details on their TLD, including the technical manager, they have to follow delegating or transferring a country code top-level domain, ccTLD. Now besides the technical part, there are politics in the generic sense. IANA is currently more a function than a structure. The structure is PTI, Public Technical Identifiers, which is currently an affiliate of ICANN. See this URL for details. ICANN is a not-for-profit organization, incorporated in California, USA. It went recently a profound set of changes, after pressure from many foreign governments so that it can be seen as more international and less into direct control from the US government, as it happened in the past. See the infamous fiasco around .30 delegation. Now there is not anymore a specific contract between ICANN and the US government specifically for the IANA functions. The technical operator of the root name server, which is the master of all from which each other root name server is purely a copy, is managed by VeriSign, and as company under direct contract by the US government. Would any country restrict their own country from accessing other countries' TLDs? E.g., UK at war with Russia, would UK have any reason to ban access to Russian websites? This is a form of DNS censorship, and it targets more the recursive name servers instead of the authoritative ones. Yes, countries can order the local operators to forbid access, more precisely, resolution, to some specific websites. This happens everywhere: USA, Germany, France, China, Australia, etc. To be honest, I am not sure you could find a lot of countries with absolutely no censorship like that, for various reasons based on the local politics and because some websites are deemed illegal to be consulted from a given country. But like any form of censorship, it can be evaded by more or less complicated mechanisms. Like the examples given above, when in some countries the local recursive name servers were banned to resolve some given names, people have written 8.8.8.8 IP4 address of Google Public DNS Resolver, so that anyone could reconfigure its system to use it instead of the local, lying, DNS resolver, since, obviously, the given country could not impose Google to change its replies for some of the queries. In other cases in the past, where even internet as a transport was disrupted, some ISP in other countries provided phone lines attached to modems that you could dial to get again access to the internet, even if all local FAI were shut down. DNS censorship is currently more often about some specific domain names, in multiple TLDs, but the basis would be exactly the same to censor a whole TLD. This technical article could give you many hindsights on both how it is done, and how it is circumvented, DNS censorship, DNS lies, as seen by Ripe Atlas. This sole point of DNS/internet censorship could be expanded in many ways to detail everything that happened in the past, but I hope the previous points already give you ideas on what is technically possible and how this fits in the whole politics/governance framework.
This is an interesting question. It is possible for a country to deny access to subdomains of their ccTLD. Yes. Is it likely, even remotely, that they would do so? No. If someone is navigating to your domain.ru addresses, their resolvers would ultimately go to the name servers for the ru ccTLD and ask where are the name servers for domain.ru. Under international standards, DNS is a fair protocol, meaning that every question receives a response. It is possible that the ru TLD servers would say, aha, that IP is from the UK and we won't tell them where the domain.ru name server is, but this would not go over well for them. Ultimately, the direction for everything is controlled by the root servers. These are 13 independent root servers, operated by 12 independent organizations, that work together to maintain equal access to the DNS. If this were to truly happen, the root servers, in collaboration with the international standard bodies, could quite literally replace the Russian servers with someone else. That is, instead of saying, "Go find Ru there in Russia," they could say, "Go find Ru here in Ukraine." While possible, it really goes against all international behavior and is extraordinarily unlikely. Edited, change wording to clarify not 13 independent organizations, but 13 root servers.
I'm trying to find out is if I own foreign TLDs and they're hosted on a server that is in my own country, can access to the URL be stopped or restricted by the TLD host country, and then if this is possible, is there any likelihood that this would happen in the event of their involvement in a war or major political breakdown between the countries? It's possible, and it already happened without a war. China owns CNTLD. It used to be open to the world. If the Chinese government would want to take down a CN domain because it doesn't like some content on it, it could change the DNS record of that CN domain. However, it was not a perfect way for the Chinese government to manage it, because who knows what content is served from which CN domain. So one day the government decided that all CN domains need to point to IP addresses physically inside China. If you owned a CN domain pointing to an out-of-China IP at the time, they gave you some time to migrate or shut down your domain. By forcing people to host CN domains physically inside China, Chinese government can inspect what services each domain provides and what content each domain serves. It could even force people to install backdoor on their servers as a requirement to put any server into data center. It tried that idea for a while,